I'm Mary Beth LaRue, and I am from Glenwood, Iowa, and I currently live in Silver Lake in Los Angeles, California. I remember seeing a yoga book on my mother's friend's table, and even though I was really young, I was totally intrigued by it, and I had this feeling that it would be a part of my path. I started to toy with yoga and play with my experience there when I was 18 or 19, and I went to class, but I wasn't a huge fan, to be honest. It was a tough transition for me. It was, I didn't feel as strong as the other people in the class. I didn't feel as confident, and I really came to yoga a few years later when I moved to Washington, D.C. I was working as a magazine editor, and I was at a desk all day long, which was a huge transition from college. So I came to the practice to reclaim my body, to feel at home in my body and feel good once again. And I remember my first class was in this carpeted room in a row house in D.C., and the teacher put on Bob Marley, and we rolled around, and I was hooked. I've had a lot of influential teachers and mentors on my path. I would say namely Skylar Grant, who founded Kula Yoga Project and Wanderlust Festivals. She's been a huge influence. Elena Brower, definitely as an influence, a friend and a mentor. Kia Miller, who I trained with. Deborah Perlson-Michalov from Washington, D.C. at Flow Yoga Center. Kira Anastasia, who had inspired yoga in DC, and then just a variety of teachers who I love in LA, and a lot of coaches and thought leaders that I love, like Byron Katie, Donna Farhi. I absolutely love Donna Farhi and the work that she does. She has a great book, Bringing Yoga to Life, if you haven't read it. It's my favorite book ever. And I love the work of Danielle Laporte. There's just so many. And as a meditation teacher, Noah Levine of Dharma Punks is my teacher and has been a huge influence. My practice definitely started as just my practice. Like, there was no inkling in sight that I would become a yoga teacher. I was terrified of public speaking. Like, we're talking shaking, jitters, like hives, the whole shebang. And the thought of talking in front of more than 5 people was terrifying. But I found that I loved this practice so much that I did my teacher training originally just to deepen that practice. And then that love just grew, and it became bigger than my fear. And it felt imperative that I share my journey. And in sharing, it has really healed me, and it's become bigger than what that fear was. And I feel so grateful to even be able to practice yoga, to have the teachers that I have, let alone be able to lead practices and facilitate space for other people. It's a huge honor. It's not something I take lightly. I've found myself surprised so often on this path. Someone once said to me that the more I practiced, the more the things that did not serve me would just fall away. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, go drink your green juice. But at the same time, that has shown up for me in such a big way. I have changed in so many ways, and I've found that as I align more and more with what's important to me and what feels right, not just taking every opportunity that comes my way, but instead really sticking with what feels true, the opportunities that I am presented with are so juicy. For instance, I just got to teach 5,000 people in Chicago, and I grew up in a town in Iowa that was 5,000 people. And my whole family flew in from Iowa, my brother from DC. And yes, I was absolutely terrified to be up there, but at the same time, so honored. And I had to get out of my own way in order to do that. I would have found a bazillion reasons why I couldn't do that. Stubbed my toe, got sick, would pass out. And instead, as I got out of my own way, I've been able to really have experiences that I would have never even dreamt up. Like I probably wouldn't have even put on my vision board because I didn't know they were a possibility. For me, the breath and meditation is everything. I mean, that is why we create the shapes we do in our bodies. And to be able to move in a way that allows us to breathe more deeply and drop into our bodies simultaneously is such a treat. So I've just found it to be my mission to bring people into that meditation as they move their bodies. It's how I practice at home. It's the way that I learned to sit and be able to meditate was to move and meditate because that sitting was so difficult. And now, yes, I do at least a couple of yoga poses every day. A lot of times I'll have a full practice and certainly a 30-minute practice, but meditation is imperative. Like, it is where I go to clear, it's where I go to rest, it's where I'm able to create the space that the world might not be granting me otherwise throughout the day. So meditation to me is everything, and I'm very grateful for the practice. From my experience, the current landscape of yoga right now in the US, there's so many different kinds, there's so many different colors, there's so many different flavors that you will find something that serves you, and what serves you right now in your practice might not be what serves you 5 years from now. I look at, the shapes I was obsessed with making, the poses I had to learn and get into, and now that practice has shifted so much. It's gotten so much quieter because I needed to get quieter. I see people are finding out about yoga in so many ways, especially through social media. I don't think this is a bad thing. I think that we are, as a society, yoga has become so accepted and such a part of people's lifestyles. But I do think it's a major, major obsession with what the physical is and what the physical looks like. And no matter what, even if you're in a chair, you can absolutely practice yoga. It's a state of presence. And that's what I wish us to shift back to, is understanding that presence, understanding that relationship with our body and that relationship with our breath, because that's a relationship that we can stay in until our very last breath, whereas Pinchamayurasana, probably not. I've felt pressure as a yoga teacher to take the pose photos where I'm in the cool sports bra on the beach. And I've done some of it. But what I've found is creativity is one of my top values. And I enjoy social media because I love imparting my view of the world, the way that I get to see it, my unique lens, and playing with that, playing with words, playing with images. So once I was able to get back to the creative, playful enjoyment of just making something, whether that's a photograph or writing something, and get away from the idea of use this hashtag, post at this time, because at the end of the day, it's all bullshit. Like, what we're here to do is to connect to our essence and what's important to us, and social media is just another way for us to convey that. So I'd love to see other people's unique views and offerings, and I think social media would be a lot more interesting. Having a sangha or having a good tribe around you is the most important thing, I really truly believe. I mean, we wouldn't even live in LA if it weren't for the people that we have around us. I have a best friend that I grew up with in my tiny town in Iowa who lives down the street, and my best friend's window looks into my window. Like, I've totally created Iowa in LA. And what I love so much as I get older and how much I value my relationships, and namely my female relationships. I grew up really scared of other girls, just growing up in a small town with the same kids from preschool to senior year is pretty traumatic. And as I got older, I found that I need other women, and I need to lean on those women, and also have people who love me enough to call me out when I need to be called out. And I wouldn't say that, my circle of friends are all from the yoga world. They're not, but they're yogis, and they're present, and they're always evolving, and they're beautiful, beautiful women and men. And really being able to be authentic and vulnerable to me is the practice of yoga. And if I'm not able to be either in a relationship, whether that be personal or business, that relationship is not for me. And I know that deeply now. As a yogini, I know my practice is working when my inner and outer worlds are aligned. And I spend so much more time tending to my inner world now than I ever did in my 20s. I just turned 33, and there's such an emphasis for me on spending time really cultivating and honoring a sense of quiet and a sense of space so that I have room for new things to come into my life. I have room for new thoughts, new beliefs, new ideas, new little sprouts of creativity. And being able to spend time on my mat or my meditation cushion, that's where I get to check in. And I notice immediately if I feel aligned, if I feel like myself, even if it just feels like my body fits. And that has become where I check in. It's where I'm able to really see. It's my mirror.